I have been showing up for kids and families. I have been identifying and celebrating all of their little wins for 30, it'll be 30 years this year. But I've only been doing that for myself for about a year and a half, but I'm telling you, it's been life changing. The biggest thing I think is that I decided I wasn't going to take an all or nothing approach. I've always taken an all or nothing approach, like to my weight, where as I'd mentioned, like I'd do low carb. So I'm going to do low carb and I'm going to take supplements and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. But it was always restrictive and it wasn't something sustainable. So what I decided is that, okay, it has to be sustainable, and once I got up to like 10 milligrams is where I noticed on Manjaro that it dampened the food noise. And so that was already improving. Like before I really started pushing all the other self-care stuff, that was already improving. And so my weight was coming off. And so um, I would say when it got to 10 is when it was magic for me. Prior to that, it was just probably a little bit of help with blood sugar and just satiety and like the delayed gastric emptying. But when it got to 10, it changed my brain, not just my stomach. And so I started really listening to that and being more mindful. And then, so I changed my eating it's been over 2 years now, August of 23. 23 was a big year. So 22 is probably one of the worst, where I just hit some low points. That's also the year where I went to Exuma. So it was my do-over trip for the trip I canceled when I got sick. And it was the worst trip of my life. And I had to use a wheelchair in the airport because my joints were so bad. I I cried on that trip, and that's not what I do. I smile when I'm in Zoom. I'm the best version of myself when I'm in the Bahamas. I am regulated and happy, and I'm in the water and I'm active. Um, but on this trip, I had to use a wheelchair. Um, it like the airports were really big. I went through Los Angeles and then also Miami, and Miami is huge. And just trying to get from like the plane because they're doing construction, like the plane to customs is like a mile. There was no way. My breathing was still a mess. My joint pain was a mess. I couldn't do it. So I was just it was a low point for me. Like the seizure was a very low point. Using a wheelchair in the airport was a very low point. Um, because it really wasn't for illness, it was for absolute, like, deconditioning that, developed, that worsened because of my illness. But to anybody else looking, it's just like, "Oh, an obese woman and being pushed in a wheelchair." And I was so self-conscious about it and just humiliated and just it was horrible, but I thought I'll be okay once I get to the Bahamas. And I wasn't because there's so much walking on uneven surfaces. And so what I found is that with my balance and my vertigo, and my shortness of breath and everything else, with all of those symptoms that I was still dealing with in 22, I couldn't walk in the sand. I couldn't, I didn't trust my body to get me up out of the water, that I didn't think I'd be able to balance in the wet sand. The dry sand was really painful just trying to rotate. So I would have to like pivot my whole body versus like just a normal mild rotation of my knee while standing in sand. I had to roll off of a boat to get off of it because I knew there wasn't anything to hold on to. And I knew that I wouldn't be able to balance and stand and get over that space of the water between the boat and the dock. I avoided going to, I downplayed it and I told my friend that I was traveling with, oh, I just don't want to go, I don't want to take the water taxi. Sure, I want to take the water taxi. Like, oh, I don't really like that club anyway. I mean, it's not my favorite. However, I love a boat ride. I don't turn down a boat ride. But to get to the water taxi, I would have had to go down a vertical ladder made of pallets and onto a rickety boat off of a rickety kind of dock. And I knew I wouldn't be able to do it. And so it was the most miserable trip. That was my do-over trip, and it was
Yeah.
absolutely miserable.
And you've had several
I've
trips
had
since
3
then,
since then.
and every time it's been better, right?
Every time.
Yeah.
Yeah, because after that, is when I went home and I locked in. The last 2 trips have been the last 3 have been great. So I went in November, and then I went in June of last year, and then I went again in November of last year. And my goal in June, because I've started setting like little goals for myself, was I wanted to be able to do all the things that I hadn't previously done because of the physical limitations. And so I did. I did all the things, and I don't have to overthink it anymore. And so on this last trip, I went over Thanksgiving just a couple months ago, and I didn't have to use a seatbelt extender. I cried. The flight attendant high-fived me when I gave it back to her. I didn't have to use a seatbelt extender. I've got this much room, on the Jeep seatbelt, which was
Yeah.
too tight for me prior where I couldn't wear it. I can walk everywhere and with like anybody else. Where before what I'd have to do is my friend would like drop me off wherever we were going and then she'd go park. I drive everywhere, I go park, I drop them off, and then I walk back. Um, Everything in my life has changed for the better over this past year, but it's largely, I mean, time obviously has played a role. My pulmonary function was the biggest gift, honestly, the biggest gift of my life, the highlight of my year. But once that improved, I've been able to address everything else.
And just are fighting. Like you are
Oh my
working
gosh.
so
I've
hard.
worked so hard, but I'm
And the
enjoying it.
mental
I'm
and
actually
physical
enjoying
gain.
the process.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I've done so much self-care. I I stopped going to the psychologist last November because I saw her after my Exuma trip and I was like, okay, I just spent $180 and talked about all my successes. And I was like, I could probably tell somebody else, for
Yeah.
free.
Yeah.
Like let me just post it on
Yeah.
Instagram, like what a rock star I am
Yeah.
and how fun my trip was. It was worth it for closure, but I didn't feel like I was in a place where that's what needed to be the focus. I felt like physical work needed to be the focus. And so I'm doing great.
And now having all these wins,
Yeah.
you were talking about having the ability maybe now to kind of look back at some of the stuff that might have been harder to look at before.
Right.
And I think with that comes a lot of, you were talking about like ways that you can be of help because of the experience that you went through and being able to reflect on that. What are some of the things for people, I think, starting first with recovery, whether
Mhm.
it's trauma, illness, accidents, whatever, recovery is going to look different for different people.
Right.
And there's like this expectation that there's this redemptive arc, this amazing thing. And talk to me a little bit about kind of your relationship with that expectation.
My relationship with it. I did feel like it was an expectation and it almost put pressure on me. I felt like there was some expectation that because I'd had this near death experience, because I was a quote unquote Christmas miracle, because only two of us survived, that I should be grateful. I should transform my life in some positive way. I should become kind of this inspirational kind of story for others. But the truth was, I had survived and my life had imploded over very, I mean, with like no advance notice, just all of a sudden, I've gone from the jacuzzi to, having like being disabled. And I have only even used the word disabled or disability this probably the past few months because I think I've processed different aspects of this at different times. And because I'm largely on the other side of so much of it, I can go deeper now because I'm no longer in survival mode. I'm working toward thrive mode, but I'm definitely beyond survival mode. But man, that first 2.5 years was absolute survival mode.
And just recognizing that that's going to be a different thing for different
Well,
people.
and that people shouldn't put, if there's someone who has gone through a devastating illness or injury, and I think it could apply to a number of different situations. If somebody has been critically ill or injured, I don't believe there should be an expectation of some kind of redemptive, transformative arc.
You don't owe that
If
to
anything,
someone.
that person is in a fragile state, a vulnerable state, and probably doesn't have the bandwidth for like gratitude theater. I know that I didn't. It was all I could do to pull it out for the kids. I couldn't pull it out for others. And I didn't feel it. It wasn't genuine, you know? And the thing is, you can be grateful for survival, but still grieve the aspects of your life that you've lost, you know? And for me, there was a lot of loss and a lot of deficits that I wasn't prepared for and for which I didn't have sufficient supports. And so I think you can be grateful for survival, but also recognize that recovery is really hard. Recovery for me was exhausting. Recovery was humiliating. Recovery, I would say, resulted in a loss of independence before anything was rebuilt. And that's not something that a hyper independent kind of small business owner is used to. I mean, in the hospital, I needed help with self care. I couldn't stand up. So I needed help with toileting. I remember being absolutely appalled and then figuring a way that I could do it myself. You know, at first I couldn't. And I remember having to basically just leave my body, just leave my body and have this happen. And I just thought, my God, how much lower is it going to go? And it did get lower before it got better, you know? But I think people need to know, people who love someone or know someone who is, you know, injured or critically ill, that you can't have some expectation of these kind of recovery myths. You can't expect a redemption arc from someone who's fragile. Redemption and rebuilding and growth and progress, I mean, that requires some level of feeling safe within your nervous system, even. And my nervous system still didn't feel safe at that time.
That makes a lot of sense, and I think if you stop and think about it, it does,
Yeah.
but we kinda wanna jump in and move past that. We
Well,
always wanna
sure. Let's
we're
get
like,
back to normal. Where's
yeah.
my fun friend?
Yeah.
I'm the fun, funny friend.
Yeah.
I'm not this, I wasn't this person hibernating in a 600-foot casita who wanted social support but didn't really have the bandwidth for it.
It's gonna be different for different people,
Absolutely.
but what are some things that you can think of, whether it's just for you or things for loved ones to think of,
Yeah.
when they have a friend, someone they care about who is gone through critical illness, what would have been more helpful to you? And understanding, like, not throwing shade at
Right.
anybody, but just like if you could have,
No, like if I could
Yeah.
wave a magic wand,
Right.
knowing what I know now, because I am looking at things differently. I remember one of my friends telling me after her husband passed away, when we were like, we want to do something for you. We don't know what to do for you. We don't know what to say. We don't know. It was sudden. It was an accident. He was young. None of us knew what to do. And she said, she said, right now, my house is filled with people. Everybody is here. But when everybody goes home in a couple of months, that is when I'm going to need you guys. And so that is what we did. Years later, that's what we still do. That concept of I'm going to need you when everybody goes home, I think that's something for someone to be aware of. Is like there's a lot of attention at the very beginning. Like, say when someone thinks that the crisis has now passed, there's all this, celebration on some level, relief, so much emotion that, okay, she's alive. She's going home. But that's when I actually needed more support. And then over time, as people naturally went back to their lives, especially as the world opened up, I felt like people went even harder core back into their lives because it's like we'd all been trapped
Yeah.
and isolated for so long. But even before I got sick, I didn't have that life of I'm just home making sourdough. I have a sourdough starter and we're just, I'm homeschooling Billy and we're just going on walks. I'm planting a garden. We're going to do a remodel project. Like I was trying to save my business and my house and not get sick, and help these kids. And so I didn't get that kind of that nice part of COVID.
Mhm.
I didn't get that where like
Yeah.
with the
Same.
stipends,
Yeah.
the unemployment stipends and stuff. I didn't get the nice part. I feel like showing up for people you care about is really important. And I feel like that's that my experience of recovering made me really be thankful for the people that continued showing up, because it doesn't have to be dramatic. I don't like, for me, I don't need grand gestures, but like just getting like texts, honestly, even just a stupid meme or something, um, just a text, but also people asking like, "Hey, how are you doing? I haven't talked to you lately. How, you mentioned this. How are you doing?" Kind of checking in, following up versus pretending it didn't happen and like ignoring the elephant in the room. I would say showing up, continuing to show up even when it's awkward, even when you're not really sure what to say, and that it's okay to say, "I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do for you. I don't know what to say, but I love you and I want to be here for you." I don't think it's helpful to ask someone, "What can I do?"
Right.
Because I know for me, and for others that I know who've experienced like a loss or tragedy, for me, I could not motor plan. I could barely motor. I was in survival mode. I can't motor plan it for you.
Right.
But concrete offers of help were appreciated for sure. I was really touched by some of them actually, because um, when it I remember one of my clients slash friends, she posted kind of this love note to me on Facebook when I lived, about how, you go through life and people are just kind of invisible. You know them, but and you love them, but you just kind of take them for granted. You assume that they're always going to be there. And she was saying, I was on my knees. Like, she's like, she saved my kid. She saved me. She saved my marriage. She saved my family. And here's this person. And I don't know, I didn't even know she loved me that much, first of all, but I reposted it on Facebook at the time, because this was right when I woke up. This is when I was still in the hospital. And, it was funny because some people some people are just nosy. And that would be something like, don't do that. If you're not if you're not inner circle, you're not close, leave the person alone. Somebody left me a message and I hadn't even talked to this person in years and we were never close. And she said on my voicemail, and I was so confused, I was still messed up. So I was confused how to even answer the phone. And it was, "Oh, hello, Kelly. I heard you've been under the weather lately." Bitch, I just got off life support. You can take that part out, Chris. Oh my God, under the weather.
Yeah.
Why are you calling? And first of all, any
Who
friend
are
of mine
you?
knows not to call.
Yeah.
Text me.
Yes.
God. What one person did offer, and I have only met her in person one time, but she has an established practice. She's a speech therapist with an excellent reputation. Her practices are in Claremont and out in like Sierra Madre, Pasadena area, but she has a very good reputation. And we've referred, when we can refer to each other, we do. But she's been in practice probably almost as long as I have, over 20 years. She wrote on that Facebook put when I had reposted it, because I had said like, "Oh, I'm Christmas Miracle," and I'd reposted what Veronica had written. She said, "Hey, you know what? If I can help your staff in any way with Kaiser reports, and getting in what you need, for the, with the insurance, I am ready to help." And I just thought, man, what a generous offer, because so many people are competitive with other businesses. And I've never seen the point of that. There's plenty of people that need help. We all have waiting lists, but she and I I've always liked her. We've always been respectful toward each other. And I respect her practice. She's competent. She's good. And I just thought, man, like we were good. Like I had staff that could do it. But if I hadn't, that would have been just the offer to me was just extremely generous.
Really tangible.
Oh my God, so tangible and just so thoughtful, so generous. And it really would have been something that would have really helped us if we had needed it.
So like thinking about things like, hey, what can I do?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
something like in specific, and I'm hearing like just showing up the small. It doesn't have to be a grand
Showing up, it
grand
doesn't need to be a
gesture.
grand gesture,
Uh-huh.
but not asking the person necessarily what they need. Just
Mhm.
saying, "Hey, can I come sit with you and watch a movie?
Yeah.
Hey, are you up to, are you up to me bringing lunch by?" Like you did that for me. You brought lunch, although it was really gross. And next time we have lunch, it's going to be something much better.
We've eaten since then. What I mean,
we have.
what did I even bring you? I don't
It was
remember
that
what it
weird
was.
plant place.
Oh yeah,
It
I
was
don't go there anymore
gross.
either.
Yeah.
So it's all we won't
No,
mention
like I
it,
thought,
but
my
yeah.
God, go get Caprice.
Sorry.
What are you
What was
doing?
I doing? I don't know. I don't even eat there a lot. I don't know what I was
You were
doing.
trying something new, I
Maybe
think. You guys were trying to be vegetarian once in a while or
maybe it was
something.
our meatless Monday
It
or
might have
something.
been, but I was like, God, I'm back at Loma Linda.
It was like
What is
I was
this?
triggering you
It's like
again.
Big Mac in the form of. It was terrible. But no, like you made arrangements with you had texted me and like, hey, are you up to I'll just bring by lunch. Are you up for it? And yeah, and I think that not taking it personally if the person is not
Yeah,
up for it
right.
because you never really know what complications and side effects are they dealing with. I had headaches, nausea, vomiting, chronic pain. I had GI issues. Like I had so many problems and I was depressed. So I wasn't always up to it. And sometimes you might have the bandwidth for certain people and not others. And those are going to be the people that are more like family that you can just be yourself with. And I was in a place for a very long time where I didn't have it to mask when I was outside of work. And so it was easier to just be by myself, and communicate via text, or
And you
whatever.
got to not take it personally if you're that friend.
Yeah.
It's not about you.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that's a hard thing. you
Right.
know?
But it's also like, it's confusing when your friend has changed this much. Like
Yeah.
this was COVID. This is a lung thing.
Yeah.
Okay, lung and heart. But why is her like where'd my friend go? Because I was very different I was a very different person post COVID. And I've really kind of separated my life into I often am referring to like kind of pre-COVID, post-COVID, like before I got sick, and then the early years of being sick, and then like the last year or two, which have been so much better and just completely different. But I've also done the work for them to be this different. I put in work every single day. And really, I mean, that's the miracle, is that I'm putting in the work to transform my life. So I've lost 162 pounds. I'm strong as hell now. And I have my endurance is much better. So I still have some issues. I still have joint pain. I still have the inner ear issues. I still get some lightheadedness. Actually, the whole room doesn't spin and I'm not going to fall, but I do still have issues with my inner ear, my connective tissue, and I mean, that's primary. But, someone said, because they saw a picture of me. Oh my God, you look amazing. And it's just not about how I look. I mean, thanks for the compliment, but okay. But COVID really was a blessing for you because, I mean, just would you have done any of this if you had? And I am just here to say that it probably isn't going to be well received if you tell someone that has just had the worst thing in their life happen. They've just had their life absolutely devastated by this virus that is a global pandemic that no one really understands very well. And this person's life has just been devastated and they can't walk or breathe and their brain is not functioning properly. And they no longer recognize themselves and their joy in life is the first 10 minutes of a burrito. Probably not the time to tell somebody it was a blessing because I am here to say that COVID was not a blessing. It was also not a curse because if this were some karma issue, trust that my karma would be good. I would be on a beach, I'm not concerned about my karma. I've done work there too.
Yeah.
There are plenty of little children who will co-sign for me that my karma is good. So it wasn't a blessing and it wasn't a curse. It was a pandemic and it was something we'd never experienced. And for me, it hit really hard. And unfortunately, it's like I became hypoxic and altered before I realized how sick I was. It didn't have to be, I didn't have to go that far, but I didn't know. Had I known I was that sick, I would have gone.
What's the most dramatically different thing between pre-COVID you, post-COVID you?
Probably that I'm willing to go outside my comfort zone kind of in different ways. I'm willing to make a fool out of myself. I'm willing to fail. I'm willing to be self-conscious and uncomfortable. I'm much more willing to go outside my comfort zone. So, I mean, this is outside my comfort zone.
You're crushing it.
Thanks. Physically, I go outside my comfort zone, but there's something about that I think in terms of like regaining agency, because it was stripped from me when I had COVID. Being in the ICU, even being in the COVID unit. I mean, when you're to that point that someone else is doing your ADLs, um, it strips you of all agency. It's their schedule. It's them doing to me. Um, for me now, I'm learning to trust my body again. I already trust my mind. Like my brain's back, but my body has improved, not in terms of like my physical features or my appearance, my health, my activity level, my fitness, my strength, my endurance, my balance have all improved so much with intervention over the past year that I'm willing to try activities that I wouldn't typically try. So, like on the anniversary of being admitted to the ICU or being admitted to the hospital, um, I I went to Infinite for my workout class, and it was a small class. A lot of people don't go on to the Friday afternoon class. It's busier in the mornings. And so I went to my Friday afternoon class and there were only like 4 or 5 people. And so the trainer was like, "Well, why don't we all try to get PRs then?" And Friday is deadlift day. So Wednesday is bench press, Friday is deadlift Friday. So that means it's always part of the first round of what we do because there's like a warm up in 3 rounds. So she said, "Why don't we all try to get PRs?" And I'm comfortable lifting like 135. If I'm going to do 10 reps deadlifts, I'm happy. I'll start lower and to make sure that I'm warmed up, and then like 135, I can do that no problem for like 10 reps. But she said, "Well, let's try to PR." And I thought, okay, well, I had gotten closer like a couple sessions prior. I said, "Well, I want to try to lift the weight I've lost." So I was at like 160 pounds. And so she says, "Well, why don't we bump up then? Let's round up," because she always rounds up. She rounded to 165. So we put 165 on that barbell and I lifted that thing. And she's like, "You weren't maxed out." I said, "I know." I said, "But it scares me a little, you know?" Even like this was before we put all the weight on there, all the plates, like just as I was warming up. She's like, "You're not maxed out. I can see that you can do more," and she's always trying to push me forward a little bit. And I said, "But I'm scared, to be honest. I don't want to hurt my back. I don't want to set myself back. I don't want to lose my progress. I guess I don't trust I still don't totally trust my body." And so then I did it. I lifted 165 pounds, and then the week after that, I did 175. And for me, like I don't need to keep lifting like that. Like I'm not
Yeah.
trying to be a lumberjack. I'm
Yeah.
not trying to do like some strong woman
Yeah.
competition. But for me, proving that to myself, it's like my brain needed the receipts.
Yeah.
I needed to prove to myself that I could trust my body, that I could do it. There's something about that type of activity as opposed to maybe other things that I'm more used to, like medicine ball slams or something like that. Um, I needed to trust my body to be able to do that, and I mean, I basically proved it to myself. So now I have no need. I'm like, let me go back to 135 and be comfortable
You
and have
did
better
it.
form. But when I did it, it was like this release. I had to turn off the audio because it was removed from Instagram with the words that I said after. But it was a celebration because for me,
Yeah.
like, I didn't think that I could lift 165. So to lift 175, and when I started, I only started in August and I didn't know the difference between a barbell and a dumbbell. I didn't know how to move the little J cups that hold the barbell. I didn't know how to move those or why we're moving those or what do we do with them. I didn't know what a collar was. Like I didn't know what any of these things were. And so now, I mean, it's not even been a year and I'm lifting heavier and I'm using better form and I'm having better endurance. And sometimes I still feel like I'm going to die at the end, but now when I'm breathless, it's not from shortness of breath. It's because I put in work and it's totally different. Trusting my body again is a huge change. I feel more confident, even for my safety. Like I had to go to the parking lot at the old mall, and there are sketchy people around there. And I was with friends and we'd gone to dinner. Well, they were going to go over to the other side and I was by myself going to go. And they're like, "Do you want us to come with you?" I was like, dude, I'm fine. Because I feel strong now. And my right cross
You've been
is I
practicing.
can get a little, and I have some pent up issues, let's be
Yeah.
honest. So I think the combination of like my right cross and my pent up issues, I feel confident that in a reasonable situation, I could defend myself. I'm moving through space differently than I did, and I just feel so much more comfortable within my own skin. And I thrive on feeling strong because I felt weak. I've never felt weak like that. I felt weak for 3 years, and so now that the rate of progress for strength training, it's so easily quantified, but I feel like my rate of progress has been good. So after such slow progress, years of weakness, of misery, of suffering, being able to become stronger, even though I'm not as strong as some of the other women, but I'm also not the weakest. And I doubt they were on life support.
Yeah.
So, um, becoming strong has become very motivating to me, very rewarding for me, and it helps keep me motivated because the truth is, we're not always motivated. I've had to learn discipline, which is not something I ever demonstrated, but I did at work. So, what I tried to do, one of this epiphany that I had is that I had to start approaching my recovery, my rehabilitation, my activity level, my weight loss. I had to start approaching it like a job. I had to show up for myself because I would never no show on a client. I wouldn't cancel late notice on a client. I remember panicking even when I was in the hospital that, oh my God, my Monday client, did somebody call him? And I'm on a ventilator. I mean, what is that? I show up for these families. I show up for these kids. I show up for my staff. But what I recognized is I wasn't showing up for myself. And so I tried to start applying some of the things, some of the concepts that I've been talking about for 30 years applied to pediatrics. I've been, to pediatric therapy. I tried to start applying some of these things to myself, and I found out I was right. Those were really good strategies, but they also work for adults. So I had to start thinking about, well, what would regulate me in different types of situations? Well, being in the water regulates me. Music regulates me. I bought a drum set a couple of years ago because I was still having so many issues with joint pain that walking was hard, but I thought I could start working on my motor planning, my bilateral coordination, my calf and like quad strength playing drums. And I found that really regulating. And I remembered like, well, yeah, that's kind of what kept me out of trouble throughout junior high and high school was playing drums. And so it was a little frustrating at first because I don't play like I did like in the 80s, but it also kind of comes back. Drums are regulating, music's regulating, spending time with people I want to spend time with, spending time with women who are positive and like supportive and encouraging, sharing humor and connection with friends, like all of those kinds of things. Deep breathing. I go to bed listening to the sound of the ocean. But movement breaks. And the funniest one for me is that I've always recommended, especially for like kids with autism or kids with ADHD, I've always recommended like really look at their sensory profile. And some of these kids they seek or they avoid certain types of input. They might be overreactive or underreactive within these various systems. And so one of us is proprioception, and when we talk about senses, we're talking about, most people think, oh, vision, hearing, touch, whatever. Well, proprioception is what gives us that understanding, that feedback of our body in space. And so the interesting thing with proprioception then is it's like it's input into our muscles and joints. It gives you that body and space feedback, but it also has like a delayed regulating effect, regulating and organizing effect. And so a lot of times we'll do things like in our hallway at work where the kids are like walking on a balance beam and hopping off stepping stones or hopping from a Bosu ball into a pillow, like into a tire filled with pillows, or hanging from monkey bars, and dropping into something or, different types of movement that give them specifically that proprioceptive input that's organizing. So we have one thing that we do where it's like a padded bumper car and we'll pull kids like with a Lycra rope and the kids love it. And I did it last year with some of the kids. We did it this year too. And I had some video and then I went to my trainer and I pulled him on the sled like on like a workout sled, um, like you'd see in like High Rocks or CrossFit or something. So I pulled him across the room. And then I realized how good I felt after. Let's go! Let's go! Woo! It was parallel, and I felt great after. I was regulated, I was organized, I was feeling competent, accomplished. And so I ended up posting the videos on Instagram like side by side because it was this it seems so silly, but it was this epiphany to me after, I mean, by then 29 years of practice, that yeah, these things that I have recommended to
That you
moms
know
and
work.
therapists that I know
Yeah.
work. Whether there's evidence or not, I know.
Yeah.
And for some of it, there is evidence. There's entire developmental models around these things. And I know that these things work for
And
kids and for
turns
families.
out,
And it turns out it works for adults too.
yeah.
Even just concepts such as like sustainability, because even the interventions that I'll recommend for families, I a lot of them just want to go intense and super go really hard and kind of do a sprint, and just jam in as much as they possibly can, versus like thinking more kind of quantity and intensity versus other things. And really it's more nuanced than that. And so it isn't that it has to be intense, it has to be sustainable. So building these strategies, whatever they are within an
What works
intervention,
within your home, your
yeah,
life.
across your
Yeah.
daily routines,
Yeah.
including play.
Yeah.
And even for me, I tend to prefer physical activities that are more play-based. Not meaning the types of play that I do at work, but like things with props and stuff, things that are more like, I like medicine ball slams. I like boxing. Like I don't want to go for a walk. I hate the treadmill. But like rowing, I like that. I like dumbbells. I like kettlebells. I found all of these activities that I actually enjoy. And with that, I've become more confident trying new things physically. And then that makes me even more willing, to trust my body and realize, it's fine. Like my PT was working with me the other day on balance, and he's like, I want to make sure. Do you want to use, he had some like pole that I could use if I needed it for balance. I'm like, dude, it's fine. He's like, well, do you want this for balance? And I said, no, that's just extra work. I said, if you knock me off balance, I'll just get back up, and 3 years ago, I would have struggled to get back up. I would have avoided falling down because it would have been some kind of catastrophe, and it would have been dramatic. It would have been embarrassing. It would have been hard to get up. Now, if I got knocked off or balance, first of all, just try it, because he hasn't been able to knock me off balance yet. So go ahead and try. But I would take it as a challenge now, and it wouldn't be that big of a deal. Like I would laugh. I would see if he got it on video, and I would post it because I don't care. Like, I don't care in terms of like, I'm confident. I'm so much more confident in my physical abilities now that I'm willing to try
And
whatever.
that is amazing too, because I know earlier you mentioned that being a big fear of yours. And so the fact that we're able like to fall or to make
Yeah.
a
Oh,
fool of
yeah.
yourself or something. And so the fact that those things are elastic and dynamic, I think sometimes, especially getting to a certain age, we think that this is just the way I am,
Mhm.
but it doesn't have to be.
Mm-mm.
And I think that that is also inspiring, to say like, is this how I want it to be? It
Right.
doesn't have to be
Well, and
this
even with
way.
like a brain injury, I mean,
Uh-huh.
I thought, oh, neuroplasticity, I'm going to make most of my progress that first year. I've made most of my progress this past year, and I'm 5 years out. But I think it's because I have shifted my mindset over time, to identify and celebrate these little wins. And that was something that I do intuitively with kids too. I have been showing up for kids and families. I have been identifying and celebrating all of their little wins for it'll be 30 years this year. But I've only been doing that for myself for about a year and a half. But I'm telling you, it's been life changing. This is what's been transformative, not the blessing of the tragedy that I went through, not the misery, not the suffering, not the pandemic. That it devastated my life on all levels. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. And let's not dismiss my suffering by calling it a blessing. However, the transformation that I've experienced, not just in terms of my weight, but everything else, because I think part of the reason that my weight has improved is because of the mindset, the shift in mindset and prioritizing my own wellness. I really have made myself a priority this past year and a half, I would say. I mean, I started a couple years ago and just gradually just added in more, where now it's to the point that I am this ridiculous person who's like, okay, well, I have to get my creatine and my electrolytes, in my magnetic gym
Yeah.
bag with my charcoal face cloth and my antibacterial spray in the other pocket. I have to get all of these things so that I can go to my class. And then after, I need to make sure I get in protein, because I don't want to lose any muscle. Like it's pretty wild. I mean, I've definitely changed a lot. And honestly, I'm liking who I am now better than who I was pre-COVID. I'm happier. I show up more consistently for myself and others. I prioritize myself. I regulate myself. Um, I feel like I'm doing really well, even though I still have some residual, deficits from long COVID. Um, some of those are permanent, but some I'm still working on. The balance continues to improve, and I will continue to work at it as long as I need to. I do hope overall that the intervention over time, the intensity of it becomes easier for me, but I believe that it will. Right now, I have a short term goal because I'm going to get plastic surgery this year. And so I'm really locked in right now, but I'm hoping over time, in a couple years, I can settle into kind of more of like the typical, 54-year-old kind of workout plan, or I guess at that point, 56. But that it doesn't always have to be as prioritized as it is right now, as hyper, like I don't want to always have to be this hyper focused. But for now, I'm locked in but it's sustainable and I'm enjoying it. And I had never enjoyed it before.
Yeah. I am so grateful for so many things, but your ability to be able to be authentic and candid about it, because I think if we really are talking about the tough stuff, the stuff that we wish would have been different, the things that we learned despite it, not,
Yeah.
because of it or whatever. Um, connection is from those things. It's when that humanity comes through and um, we can learn from each other, be
Mhm.
inspired by each other.
Mhm.
I'm so inspired by you daily. And I've always appreciated how, you always hold me to the fire.
I don't know what you mean by that.
Well, I mean, you were the one who got me to stop cutting my kids' waffles for me at
I also called you out when you said last night that you don't have to be fancy all the time anymore.
I mean, you do call me out a lot. I don't have to be all the time. I'm wearing a sweater and jeans
You
right
are.
now.
You
Yeah.
look great.
No, thanks. So,
That
no.
was a fancy blazer, though, in the new photo that I saw for your contact.
So you are like the best of yourself as that you've always been, like the person who I was thinking last night, like, man, we've been friends for like 15
We
years
have. It's
now.
been a long time. It
And
was 2009.
yeah, so that's yeah, math. Anyway, but more
Right.
than 15 years. And
Oh yeah, I wasn't gonna do the math. I
yeah,
just know the
okay,
year.
yeah. So and like the parts of you that I've always loved and appreciated and are there, and it's wonderful to see your spark back.
Yeah.
And then also for you to be like also discovering more of yourself every day. I think it's so easy for us to, as we age, also to become like so set in who we
Right.
think we are, who people think we are,
Right.
or something.
No, it's
So,
true. We
yeah.
become known for certain things. So I would be known as like the funny friend or the really good pediatric best pediatric therapist in town, funny friend, sarcastic. Like there would be certain things that I would be known for. When I was a kid, it was for being a drummer. It just different phases of life, you're known for certain things. But it was funny because when I was in the Bahamas on my last trip in November, my friend's son was there, my little nephew. and he's 5 now. And I was going to go to the little janky gym that they have where we were staying. So we had this little like bungalow duplex next door to each other, so I don't have to live with a 5-year-old. And so we're staying next door to each other, and he would get on his mom's phone and voice text me. He'd find my name, voice sound it out, voice text me, and like, hey, are we going to the gym? And so I worked out with him like 4 times, and I was teaching him little things. He calls goblet squats goblin. I'm gonna just keep it. I'm gonna keep it as a goblin squat. I was teaching him just different little
Yeah.
things. So he'd get his little 5-pound weights, and then the most they had for me was 20. You have to count only when they go up. So right now I'm on 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh my gosh, 9. Don't make people laugh when they're holding weights above their face. But I realized when we were there, I've never had a kid look up to me for like, he's like, you're really strong, Kiki,
Oh.
and I've never, I've never received some kind of accolade, even from a
Mhm.
5-year-old for strength, and I wasn't doing anything amazing, but it was just the connection with him and teaching him something new. And he was really looking up to me for it. And so I bought him little 5-pound weights and like a
Mhm.
shark yoga mat for Christmas. And I thought, oh, now that it's over, he's going to move back onto his tablet or whatever. First day he got it, he took it home and he had his mom send me a video of him working out. And I just thought, man, if I got that kid off a screen too, by him looking up to me, how cool is that? Like, kill 2 birds.
That's amazing. And we can always discover new things
Yeah.
about ourselves that we're into, like, and I think that's super inspiring too. As we kind of wind down and going over so much,
Yeah.
these last 5 years. Um, and again, thank you so much for sharing such, personal stories. Um, what is something else or anything that we missed that you think would be useful in sharing about your story that's like, I want to make sure that as we end this, people understand, I don't know, fill in the blank.
I think just understanding that survival and recovery are 2 very different things. I think understanding that recovery isn't linear and that recovery is going to look different for everyone. I think the importance of patient communication, education, anticipatory guidance. It would have been helpful for me to know that I was in heart failure. It would have been helpful for me to know what to expect. It would have been helpful for me to know, like, say I start desaturating, um, what's going to happen, because I lived in fear for a very long time and it held me back from recovering. I think information's really important, education's really important. And the thing is, I'm someone who goes in who was there with, 10 years of college, a master's. I'm in healthcare, I'm a therapist, I know how to bill insurance, I know what these codes mean for OT and PT. You know, I I'm English speaking. Like, there's plenty of things that were kind of in my favor in terms of my healthcare, and still there was no patient education. So then that makes me wonder, what about other patients who are coming in and maybe don't speak the language as fluently, maybe don't have the educational level that I do, don't have the financial resources or the health insurance that I do. How do they even navigate these systems? So I think, regardless of the level of privilege that someone might have or not have in a healthcare setting, I think it's really important to consider humanity and function and quality of life and how you communicate and educate the patient.